Let's dive into a really fascinating legal puzzle from Canada. Imagine this. Police find a suspect, and they've got illegal drugs right there in their pocket. Seems like an open and shut case, right? Well, in the case of R.V. Adams, that's exactly how it started. But the ending? Well, it's somewhere nobody expected.
So on its face, the case against a man named Fritz Adams looked about as simple as it gets. He gets arrested, the police search him, and boom, they find illegal drugs. For any prosecutor, that seems like a total slam dunk, a pretty clear path to a conviction.
And yet, when his case went to the Court of Appeal, his conviction wasn't just questioned, it was completely wiped away. The court set it aside and officially entered an acquittal. He was found not guilty.
So that's the big mystery we're going to unpack here today. How does a case with hard physical evidence, drugs literally found on the guy, just fall apart? Well, the answer has nothing to do with the drugs themselves. It's all about a chain of events that started with one single, critical decision the police made.
All right, so to really get how this whole thing unraveled, we have to start with the facts that nobody was arguing about. These are the things both the defense and the prosecution agreed were true. The basic story is pretty straightforward. The police had totally legitimate reasons to arrest Adams. They tracked him down to the laundry room in his building, they made the arrest, and a search turned up the narcotics. On the surface, this all looks like solid, by-the-book police work. But, as it turns out, the real issue wasn't why he was arrested. It was all about where and how.
And this is where the whole case takes a sharp turn, right? It pivots from simple facts to some really complex legal questions. And that laundry room, well, it becomes the main battleground.
So here's the question that changes everything. Sure, the police had grounds to arrest Adams. Nobody disputed that. But did they have the legal right to just walk into the building to find him in the first place? The answer to that question really hinges on a huge principle in Canadian law.
It's known as the Feeney warrant rule, and it's basically a cornerstone of our privacy rights. It boils down to that old idea that your home is your castle. Police can't just come strolling in to arrest you without getting a warrant from a judge first, unless there's some kind of emergency.
And this is where you see the two sides just clash. The Crown's argument was, come on, a shared laundry room isn't a private home. They said Adams couldn't really expect privacy there, but the defense shot back, arguing that the laundry room was actually part of the superintendent's home and the law protects any dwelling, not just the one belonging to the suspect.
Okay, so let's peel back another layer of this legal onion. Because even if police don't have a warrant, there is another way they can get into a private home, if they have valid consent from someone who lives there.
And that's exactly what the Crown argued on appeal. They basically said, okay, fine, the laundry room is part of a dwelling house, but the entry was still legal because the superintendent let us in. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast.
And this is the detail that blew the whole argument apart. The Court of Appeal found that the police never told the superintendent the real reason they were there. They told him they were checking on a noise complaint, when what they really wanted to do was get inside to find and arrest Adams.
This led the court to a really crucial legal point. For consent to be real, it has to be informed consent. Because the police tricked the superintendent about what they were really doing, he couldn't actually give them informed consent. So, to put it simply, consent that you get through deception isn't real consent at all.
Okay, so let's recap. The police had no warrant. The consent they got was based on a trick, so was invalid. So how did the Court of Appeal take those pieces and use them to completely throw out the conviction?
The Crown tried one last, kind of Hail Mary argument. They basically said, look, even if we did trick the superintendent, we violated his rights, not Adams's rights. They argued Adams didn't have the legal standing, the right to even complain about it because it wasn't his expectation of privacy that was violated.
Oh, but the court was not having it. They shut that argument down completely. They said, this isn't about someone else's privacy. The second the police walked through that door illegally and then illegally searched Adams's pockets, his own fundamental rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms were violated. That's Canada's highest law, and this was a direct violation. And here you can just see the dominoes fall, one by one. The court laid it out so clearly. The laundry room was a dwelling. The entry needed a warrant or real consent. The consent was fake. Therefore, the entry was unlawful. An unlawful entry makes the arrest unlawful. And a search that happens because of an unlawful arrest, that search is also illegal. The whole chain was broken right at the very first link. And so, that was it. The court reached its final, decisive conclusion.
The appeal was allowed, the conviction was thrown out, and an acquittal was entered. Those drugs they found in his pocket? They were excluded as evidence. And without that evidence, the Crown had no case left.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's one interesting case from a while ago. But why are we still talking about it today? Well, because it draws this incredibly important line in the sand, a line between the power of the state and the rights of every single person.
This ruling really hammered home some huge principles. It confirmed that your privacy rights don't just stop at your apartment door. They extend to your whole dwelling. It sent a really clear signal that police can't just use a little trickery as a skeleton key to get around the need for a warrant. And maybe most importantly, it showed that if evidence is found by violating someone's rights at the start, that evidence can't be used to convict them at the end.
Ultimately, the Adams case really pushes all of us to think about a pretty fundamental question. In a world of shared spaces, of condos and apartment buildings, it makes you wonder, where exactly does our right to privacy begin, and where does it end? At what point does that shield of our personal rights truly kick in?